Paige 12-Gauge Vanzant. She may look like a model, but Paige Vanzant's nickname comes straight out of a shotgun barrel. Literally, 12-Gauge wasn't a marketing gimmick. It's a reference to the 12-Gauge shotgun she used for target shooting as a teen. In her UFC debut in 2014, she brought that same no-nonsense energy, defeating Kailin Curran via a third-round TKO. Dana White immediately praised her raw power, and the nickname started trending. She once said, "People underestimate me." That's the fun part. It stuck because it fit. Clean, dangerous, and unexpectedly explosive. Kind of like her flying knee finish in Bare Knuckle FC. Daniel D.C. Cormier. You might think DC is just his initials, but in UFC lore, those two letters became a brand of dominance and heartbreak. Daniel Cormier was born in Lafayette, Louisiana, and began wrestling at 10. By the time he was 22, he'd won 3 Louisiana state wrestling titles, placed 4th at the 2004 Olympics, and became team captain at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, though he was forced to withdraw due to kidney failure from a brutal weight cut. When he entered MMA in 2009, most knew him as Daniel Cormier the Olympian, but his teammates started calling him DC, not just for his name, but for his clean-cut, no-nonsense leadership style. Even Dana White called him a role model champion. DC wasn't just a nickname. It became a symbol of discipline, respect, and doing things the right way. Manny the Anvil Gamburyan. Short, stocky, and relentless, Manny Gamburyan didn't choose the anvil. It was given to him after years of hammering down opponents like a solid block of steel. Born in Armenia, Gamburyan moved to the US during the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. As a refugee child, he was bullied in school, which led him to judo and wrestling. By 16, he'd already won the junior nationals in judo and trained under Gene LaBelle, the same guy who trained Chuck Norris and Ronda Rousey's mom. In 2007, Manny entered The Ultimate Fighter Season 5, where his no-fluff approach and slamming takedowns earned him the nickname. Jens Pulver said, "He hits like a damn anvil," after watching him drop a 6-foot 1-inch opponent with a suplex. That line stuck, and so did the nickname. Manny ended his career with 15 wins, 10 losses, and the kind of reputation you don't expect from someone barely 145 pounds. Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Donald Cerrone didn't earn the nickname Cowboy as a gimmick. He lived it. Raised in Denver, Colorado, he started riding horses and bulls at rodeos in his teens. He even owned a ranch where he'd ride ATVs and rope cattle between training camps. Cerrone made his UFC debut in 2011 and fought a record-setting 38 times in the promotion. He wore a cowboy hat during every weigh-in, walked out to country music, and once said, "Fighting's what I do, but cowboying is who I am." He holds the record for most head kick knockouts in UFC history and 23 career finishes. But what made him a fan favorite was his anytime, anywhere attitude. He fought 4 times in 2015 alone. Cerrone finished with 36 wins, 10 post-fight bonuses, and 0 apologies. Cowboy wasn't a persona, it was a lifestyle. Quinton Rampage Jackson. Before UFC fame, Rampage Jackson made waves in Japan's Pride FC by slamming opponents through the ropes, literally. His nickname came from childhood. His mom called him Rampage because he broke furniture when angry. He debuted in UFC in 2007, knocking out Chuck Liddell to become light heavyweight champion. Known for howling like a wolf before fights, Jackson became one of the sport's first crossovers, later starring in the A-Team movie. He finished with 38 wins, including legendary knockouts over Wanderlei Silva and Kevin Randleman. But what really stuck? That 2008 powerbomb KO of Ricardo Arona, a slam so violent it's still used in UFC highlight reels. Rampage didn't just fight. He made chaos an art form. Frankie "The Answer" Edgar. Some fighters are born into greatness. Frankie Edgar had to earn it, inch by inch. Standing just 5 feet 6 inches, Frankie was always the smaller man in the cage, but that's why they called him The Answer. His college wrestling coach gave him the name, because whenever a fight got tough, Frankie found an answer. Born in Toms River, New Jersey, Edgar worked construction and bartended before making it to the UFC. In 2010, he shocked the world by defeating BJ Penn twice to win and defend the UFC lightweight title, and he did it while giving up 10 to 15 pounds of size in nearly every fight. Edgar was never flashy, but his cardio, heart, and grit became legend. He later dropped to featherweight and then bantamweight, fighting top contenders in 3 divisions. He retired in 2022 after 30 UFC fights, and fans still say, if there's ever a guy you'd want in your corner during a war, it's Frankie "The Answer" Edgar. Andrei "The Pitbull" Arlovski. Andrei Arlovski earned the nickname Pitbull not from a manager, but from Belarusian fans who watched him demolish opponents in the early 2000s. A former Sambo world champion, Arlovski burst into the UFC in 2000 and became interim heavyweight champion in 2005. He's known for his explosive overhand right, glass jaw, and iconic fanged mouthguard. His 2005 knockout of Justin Eilers lasted just 4:10, and he once won a fight in 47 seconds using nothing but leg kicks and a jab. As of 2025, Arlovski has fought 40-plus times in the UFC, more than any heavyweight in history. Despite setbacks, he always bounced back, just like a pit bull locked in a cage. Tony El Cucuy Ferguson. El Cucuy means the boogeyman in Mexican folklore, and Tony Ferguson earned it the hard way. With a 76.5-inch reach, freak athleticism, and a habit of slicing up opponents with elbows, Ferguson was feared by both fans and fighters. He won 12 straight fights in the UFC's lightweight division between 2013 and 2019, an era many consider the toughest in UFC history. During that run, he secured the interim lightweight title by submitting Kevin Lee at UFC 216 and earned 11 performance bonuses. He trained in isolation, ran mountains barefoot, and once sparred with a Wing Chun dummy in a cage. Joe Rogan called him the scariest dude at 155. El Kuki didn't just beat you, he made you look like a horror movie victim. His 2020 war with Justin Gaethje, Ferguson absorbed 143 head strikes and kept coming. BJ the Prodigy Penn, BJ Penn, got his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu after just 3 years, an unheard of achievement. At 22, he won the 2000 Mundials, becoming the first non-Brazilian to do it at the black belt level. He joined the UFC in 2001 and earned his nickname, the Prodigy, after his lightning-fast rise through the rankings. By 2004, he shocked the world by submitting Matt Hughes to win the welterweight title, despite being a natural lightweight. Penn is one of just 7 fighters in UFC history to hold belts in 2 divisions. He finished fights with flying knees, heel hooks, and brutal ground and pound. His fight with Diego Sanchez in 2009, BJ landed 150 significant strikes and opened a forehead gash so deep doctors had to stop it. Despite a rocky end to his career, Penn's early years were pure dominant. He wasn't just a prodigy, he was a phenom that made veterans look like amateurs. Jorge "Gamebred" Masvidal. Before he was headlining Madison Square Garden, Jorge Masvidal was fighting in Kimbo Slice's Miami backyard. Literally, gamebred means bred to fight, and Jorge lived it. No pads, no judges, just fists and pride. He debuted in the UFC in 2013, but his legend exploded in 2019. First, he flatlined Darren Till in London. Then came the fastest knockout in UFC history. 5 seconds, a flying knee that sent Ben Askren stiff before he hit the ground. Masvidal has 51 professional fights, with 35 wins, 16 by knockout, and some of the slickest boxing in MMA. His calm, hands-behind-back posture before finishes became trademark. What makes him gamebred? Masvidal once said, "I was raised to fight. That's what I do. I don't blink." Chael, the American gangster Sonnen. Chael Sonnen didn't wait for the UFC to give him a nickname. He gave it to himself. The American gangster was born out of pure audacity. Chael grew up in West Lynn, Oregon, the son of a plumbing contractor. Not exactly gangster territory. But when asked why he called himself that, Chael smirked, "Because I'm from the mean streets of West Lynn, and I do gangster stuff." He weaponized trash talk like no one before. Before fighting Anderson Silva at UFC 117, Chael delivered a press conference performance that changed fight promotion forever, calling Silva a fraud and Brazil a dump. Then he backed it up, almost. He dominated Silva for 23 minutes before being submitted in the final round. Chael never held UFC gold, but he headlined 4 pay-per-views, fought in 3 different weight classes, and sold fights like no one else. He retired with 31 wins, 0 apologies, and the most iconic self-made nickname in UFC history. Chael didn't need a belt. He had a microphone. Nick Diablo Diaz, the original Stockton outlaw. Nick Diaz didn't just fight. You felt like you were getting mugged inside the octagon. His nickname, Diablo, Spanish for devil, came early in his career from his reputation for chaos inside and outside the cage. In his Strikeforce days, he'd fight anyone, anytime, with 0 fear. The nickname stuck after his 2004 knockout of Jeremy Jackson, completing a revenge trilogy that began on the local California circuit. He flipped off opponents, taunted mid-fight, and once walked out of a press conference to go jogging. "I'm not scared, homie," he told Carlos Condit before their 2012 showdown, a line that lives in UFC trash talk history. Nate, the Stockton Slap Diaz. Nate Diaz doesn't just fight, he disrespects opponents mid-fight with what fans call the Stockton Slap. And yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. Born in Stockton, California, Nate grew up in a rough part of town and started training with his older brother, Nick Diaz, at just 14. When he joined the Ultimate Fighter 5, fans noticed his trademark open-handed slap, a taunting strike used to break rhythm and humiliate his opponents. Diaz has fought in the UFC since 2007 and racked up 15 submission wins and 13 performance bonuses, tying him with legends like Anderson Silva. His most famous moment? Submitting Conor McGregor on March 5, 2016 at UFC 196, after taking the fight on just 11 days' notice. The Stockton Slap wasn't just showboating, it worked. It forced opponents to lose composure. Then, Nate finished them. Tim, the main Ajax Sylvia. Standing at 6 feet 8 inches and weighing over 260 pounds, Tim Sylvia didn't just walk into the cage, he loomed over it. Born in Ellsworth, Maine, his nickname the Maniac was a clever nod to his roots and his wild, brawling fight style. Sylvia entered the UFC in 2002 and quickly made his presence felt. Just 1 year later, at UFC 41, he knocked out Rico Rodriguez to win the UFC heavyweight title. He defended it twice and regained it again in 2006, holding the belt for 2 separate reigns. Fans remember Sylvia for his towering frame, devastating right hand, and the time he fought with a broken arm against Frank Mir, refusing to tap until Herb Dean stepped in. "I didn't want to quit," Sylvia later said. "I didn't even know it was broken." Randy, the natural Couture. Imagine becoming a UFC champion in your 30s, then doing it again at age 43. That's Randy the Natural Couture, a former U.S. Army sergeant and 3-time NCAA Division I All-American wrestler. Couture's transition to MMA was seamless. He earned the nickname The Natural because everything, from clinch work to strategy, came effortlessly. He made his UFC debut in 1997 at UFC 13 and won the heavyweight tournament that night. He was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame in 2006 and later became an analyst, actor, and ambassador for the sport. His style was never flashy, but always effective, and that's what made him the Natural. Israel, the last stylebender Adesanya. Israel Adesanya's nickname isn't just clever, it's a worldview. The Last Stylebender was inspired by Avatar, The Last Airbender, a show about mastering all elements. Adesanya took that literally, blending striking styles from kickboxing, boxing, Muay Thai, and capoeira into one fluid, unpredictable art. Born in Nigeria, raised in New Zealand, Izzy started as a skinny anime nerd who once got bullied for dancing. By the time he debuted in the UFC in 2018, he was already a 75-5 kickboxer with dozens of KO victories. Within 2 years, he became UFC middleweight champion, knocking out Robert Whittaker in front of 60,000 fans in Australia. What made him stylebender? Just watch his movement. He switches stances like water, taunts mid-fight, matrix slips punches, and lands counters with sniper accuracy. He defended the title 5 times, beat legends like Andrei Silva, and became the first to KO Paulo Costa. And before every fight, he'd perform anime-inspired dances, summon chakra, or drop Naruto references. Israel said, "Stylebender is who I am. I don't just fight, I express." That nickname didn't just stick, it became a brand. Jose Scarface Aldo. The scar on Jose Aldo's face wasn't from a fight. It came from falling into a barbecue pit as a baby, but it gave him the nickname Scarface, which stuck with fans from his early WXT days. Aldo ruled the featherweight division like a tyrant. He was the inaugural UFC featherweight champion and went undefeated for 10 years, defending the title 7 times. His leg kicks were brutal. He once landed 29 in a single round against Uriah Faber at WEC 48, turning Faber's thigh purple. Aldo's speed, takedown defense, and striking IQ were nearly untouchable in his prime. Even after losing to Conor McGregor in 13 seconds, Aldo returned to win again, because champions don't vanish. Wanderlei the Axe Murderer Silva. Wanderlei Silva didn't get his nickname from fans. It came from terrified opponents in Brazil's Vale Tudo circuit. His aggression was so intense, his sparring partners would refuse to train without headgear. Silva dominated Pride FC in the early 2000s, holding a record of 22 wins with 20 by KO TKO. His most infamous moment? At Pride 33, he was knocked out by Dan Henderson in one of the most brutal finishes ever televised. Nicknamed the Axe Murderer for his relentless Muay Thai clinch and looping hooks, Wanderlei once went 18 fights unbeaten between 2000 and 2004. His stare-downs were legendary. Head tilted down, eyes glaring upward like a horror movie villain. In his UFC return, he brawled with Chuck Liddell at UFC 79 in a 3-round slugfest that fans still rewatch today. He retired with 35 wins, 27 knockouts, and one of the most feared reputations in MMA history, Anderson the Spider Silva. Anderson Silva's nickname wasn't about fear, it was about precision. Like a spider waiting in the center of its web, Silva lured opponents in before striking with surgical devastation. He entered the UFC in 2006 and delivered one of the most dominant reigns in combat sports history. 16 straight wins, 10 consecutive title defenses, and 2,458 total UFC cage time minutes. He destroyed legends like Rich Franklin, Vitor Belfort, and Forrest Griffin with effortless precision. His front kick KO of Belfort at UFC 126 became an instant highlight reel. Silva's elusive head movement, dodging 5 consecutive punches from Griffin, looked like bullet time in a video game. He was nicknamed the Spider because of his long limbs, unorthodox stance, and terrifying accuracy. He landed 68% of his strikes during his prime, an unheard-of stat in MMA. Now let's wrap it all up with the one nickname that changed UFC culture forever. Conor the Notorious McGregor. Conor McGregor didn't just borrow his nickname from rapper the Notorious B.I.G. He embodied it. Loud, brash, unapologetic, and a once-in-a-generation showman. McGregor adopted the Notorious during his Cage Warriors days, branding himself as a global superstar before he ever set foot in the UFC Octagon. He made his UFC debut in 2013 with a KO win in just 67 seconds against Marcus Brimage and called his shot immediately after. Dana, 50 G's baby. What followed was a meteoric rise. McGregor knocked out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds at UFC 194, the fastest finish in UFC title fight history. He became the first simultaneous two-division UFC champion after defeating Eddie Alvarez at UFC 205, holding both the featherweight and lightweight belts. McGregor's nickname became a global brand. From whiskey to fashion to $100 million boxing bouts, the Notorious transformed MMA economics forever. He headlined 8 of the top 10 highest-grossing UFC events, including UFC 229, which sold 2.4 million pay-per-view. Love him or hate him, the name Notorious became synonymous with spectacle, and that's exactly what he promised every time he walked out, chest puffed, arms wide, owning the moment before the fight even began. If you've made it this far, you're clearly one of the real ones. Hit subscribe now, because next, we're diving into the darkest secrets UFC never wanted fans to know.